Welcome to another Ethical Corporation podcast with me, Toby Webb, and today I'm podcasting with Richard Reed, who is one of the co-founders of Innocent Drinks, from Fruit Towers, Richard's office in West London. So how are you today, Richard?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for inviting me in. We just had a nice veg pot lunch and a bit of a chat about sustainable, ethical business. I wanted to start off, Richard, by asking you about your mission. I mean, your essential mission, boiled down, is to provide healthy food to customers at large scale. Why didn't anyone do this before you guys did?
It's a really interesting question because, we are definitely all about trying to get natural, fresh, healthy food to as many people and places as we can. It is actually surprisingly difficult. It's much easier to make a food that's going to be ambient, that doesn't have to be kept in the fridge, that will last a long time because you use preservatives and additives and all that type of stuff. And I guess if you get too caught up in making it convenient for the business by doing those things, you just end up abstracting the food further and further away from its natural source. We came into this not as business people, but as three guys that have always been brought up on natural, healthy food, that wanted to make it easy for people to do themselves some good. And so we just did it simply from first principles. We did our first recipes in our kitchen, in our shared house, and we made it the way you'd make it at home. And then when we started making it at scale, we made it the way you'd make it at home at scale. It's meant that the business is incredibly high maintenance in that we're buying fruit every day, we're squeezing fruit every day, we're distributing and delivering our drinks every day, and the whole thing has to be kept chilled because it's fresh. But because we didn't know any differently, it's how we've done it. We've done it the way you'd want it to be done if you're drinking the drink, not to make it more convenient for the business. And I guess that's the difference. Most food industry players are more about the industry than they are about the food, and we've always seen ourselves as more about the food than we are about the industry.
So in the early days, when you met kind of big food executives and you put that picture to them, did they think you were just completely mad?
Yes, but they were incredibly nice. We were amazed by how generous people were with their time. We would be literally ringing up the switchboard of big food manufacturing companies, asking to be put through to the managing director, and being put through, and then people saying they're prepared to meet us for a meeting, and we would always try and arrange it over lunch so we get free sandwiches because we had absolutely no cash, and we'd turn up there and we'd explain what our idea was, and they would always say the same sort of thing, which was, guys, it's a nice idea doing smoothies, but clearly what you're going to have to do is use concentrated juice to make it more profitable and preservatives to give it a longer shelf life. And we'd say, look, we're not going to do it that way. And they said, we don't understand. That's how you do it. And we said, look, it's you that doesn't understand. We're called Innocent. Our whole idea is to keep things natural and simple. If you take that away, then we don't have an idea. So we're going to have to just keep going until we find someone who sort of shares that value. And it took us the better part of a year, but we found a 60-year-old bloke that had grown up in Jamaica, knew the world of fresh oranges incredibly well, had moved from Jamaica to Cardiff and started a business importing fresh oranges and started making fresh orange juice, and we could work with him to make our smoothies. And he himself said he thought it wasn't going to work, that we were just making it far too complicated, but there was a glint in our eyes that reminded him of himself when he was our age, so he was prepared to give it a go and try it out with us.
And how is it going now? I mean, we talked before we turned the tape on that last couple of years have been pretty tricky for a lot of businesses, and you're not alone there. How is it looking for 2011? So
2011 is looking good. 2008 was a dreadful year for us. Up until then, we'd had an amazing run at it. The business kept growing, and everything seemed to go our way. 2008 was a really heavy, bad year. 2009, we sort of found our feet a little bit. 2010 was good. We got a bit of momentum back into the business, and 2011 is going to be our busiest year for getting new healthy products out there, supporting them in the market, dialing up the charitable work that we do. It's on all the different dimensions of the business. 2011 which will be our biggest year yet.
And how many years have you made a profit since you started?
Well, we made a profit for the first 7. Then since then we lost money, and our worrying claim to fame is we've lost more money than we've made in the history of the business. So I always say, actually, if you look at the finances of our business, we're a fruit distribution charity rather than a company.
But you're hoping to change that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the difference is in 2008 we lost money and it wasn't planned and we weren't expected it and we couldn't afford it. 2011, we're forecasting a loss, but it's very much a planned loss. It's about investing in our international expansion, getting new products out there, and also investing in marketing to grow the business. The underlying fundamentals of the business are good. It's never going to be massively profitable because there's not much margin in our products because the cost of goods, because it's 100% fruit, it just costs so much to make them. But we can make a decent, sustainable margin going forwards. It does get better with scale.
And a lot of big businesses, if you look at the really big multinationals that are listed, very few of them make more than 10, 12%.
Yeah, but we would love to be making 10 to 12%. But yes, the food industry isn't, you don't go into it for huge profits, but what it should be is a nice, sustainable business. At the end of the day, we're always going to need food, and so I like it as an industry to work within. I get it myself as a person. Everyone has a personal relationship with food. It's a hobby, it's a passion. I'd much rather be doing something in food than making sort of weird widgets somewhere. It has a substance to it and a realness to it, which I really enjoy.
Talking about the realness side of things, of course, agriculture and procurement is a big part of the business. You guys are one of the largest fruit buyers in Europe for the type of fruit that you buy.
That's right, yeah.
What are the challenges that you're facing around sustainable purchasing?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, and it's one of those things that weirdly has got better as we've got bigger. When we were 26-year-old guys just starting out, we simply couldn't get our phone calls returned, never mind have a proper conversation about the growing conditions and where the fruit comes from. Fast forward to now, I have a team of full-time agronomists and a full-time sustainability team who are out in the field, visiting the farms, making sure that they abide by our minimum standards, diverting funds and resources to those farms that have a higher social and ethical standard. It's allowed us to become more innocent rather than less as we've grown. But it wouldn't happen if we didn't have a full-time team focused on that and only that. And
what sort of challenges are you hearing with regard to farmers? I mean, how are farmers doing at the moment?
Well, every fruit is absolutely different in its physiological makeup chemically, but also in terms of the social, environmental questions and issues around it. It hugely depends. In pineapple growing, we think the biggest issue there is, well, it's twofold. It's a tough crop if you're employed as the person picking it. It's a tough crop to pick. There's a lot of pesticide usage. Just the leaves are very pointy. You need proper protection, and in bad farms that you're not getting it. In good farms you are. Fast forward to a completely different one. Strawberries in Spain. Actually, the single biggest issue there, it's less social, it's more environmental, it's about water usage. So this year we are working with the World Wildlife Federation on a pilot scheme to reduce the amount of water used in growing strawberries. So, and again, with the pineapples, then we're working with farms only that give the proper breaks and the proper protection to the workers. So you have to sort of apply a fruit-by-fruit approach because each fruit has got its own set of unique issues.
Are you concerned about the rising age of the average farmer? Because I mean, it's not a product that you source, I don't think much of, but I was in Ghana last year looking at cocoa, and the average age of cocoa farmers is sort of 50 plus, and then you look at some of the demographics in some of these countries and people don't live much longer than 60 sometimes. And,
yeah.
So I was wondering if you feel you're concerned about the rising age of the average farmer.
I guess it's one of the issues on the watch list. For us, it's not the number one, but again, as you say, that's the thing that you found with cocoa.
Is that a concern with your European fruit purchasing?
Sorry, say that again.
Is that a concern with buying fruit in Europe?
I don't know is the straight answer to that. Maybe it should be more of a concern than it is currently. It's not on our big watch list of current issues. As I said, we're looking at sort of water usage with strawberries, with climate change is the thing that if you ask my fruit buying team what is the single biggest issue that we have, or our single biggest concern, it is seeing the consequences of climate change on the growing patterns and the harvesting yields of our different fruits, especially Indian mangoes. So we're funding a pilot there with the local Indian university to look at the what's happened over the last 5 to 10 years, because it really feels like it's starting to bite in terms of, as I said, yields, what sort of support and where else they can grow the crops if it's not going to grow there, and what else they could grow if they can't rely on the mango as a source of income. That's our number one worry longer term, rather than age of farmers. I will speak to my fruit buying team though, because that's always, the fact I can't even talk knowledge about that makes me think that maybe there's something there that we need to know more about.
well, it could also be very market and area specific. I don't know all the numbers for Europe. In terms of the overall business, then, what keeps you awake at night about Innocent? I mean, obviously there's the financial side, which we've talked about, but what do you feel from a sustainability point of view that you're just not good enough at? That you'd really, the one thing maybe you'd really like to change?
Well, I don't want to repeat myself, but we have a thing called the Sustainability Advisory Board, where we get external social and environmental experts to come in. We give them full transparency of our business about what we do and how we do it. Get them to critique it, tell us about what issues that they think that we should be focusing on. We did our one recently. We did it recently because we do it once a quarter. It was absolutely fundamental. We had this big aha moment of, we don't do anything other than buy fruit. We don't add in anything to the fruit. We don't take anything away. No fruit equals no business for Innocent. There's no buffer between us and what nature provides. Climate change is genuinely starting to affect things. What is the long-term solution for a business that makes things from 100% fruit over the next 10 to 20 years if what we think is true turns out to be true, that the patterns of fruit harvests are being reaped, the havoc is being reaped in terms of how and when the fruit grows. So, and I'll tell you one thing, I don't have an answer to that. How are we going to sort of combat the consequences of climate change? Don't know, but I know that we need to think of a plan because it is starting to bite us.
Turning to Coca Cola for a second, that's always a topic that comes up with Innocent, given that they are a major shareholder, or in fact, it's a majority shareholder.
Yeah.
But at the same time as that, we also talked before we turn the tape on about your fairly unique arrangement with the way the management of the business is structured.
Yeah.
And that you guys retain control of that management.
That's it, yeah. So Innocent remains a completely separate company run by myself, Adam and John, with full operational control. So we really enjoy having a relationship with Coke, but it's very hands-off, and we get to decide what we do, where we do it, and how we do it. So it's I think, a genuine unique deal where they do own the majority of the shares, but myself, Adam and John have the majority of control of the business, which means we continue to run it in the way that we think is best for the brand and the people and the consumers.
So I think it is fairly unique. So from what I understand, you can't be sacked by a majority shareholder.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I can by Adam and John, but that's been the same for the last 12 years.
Yeah. Well, you've got to have some control.
Yeah.
Some controls, I should say, on those that run it. What did you think about Coke before you got to know them? Because a lot of NGOs and consumers groups might think, well, that's the antithesis of healthier products. I mean,
yes,
I know Coke is trying to move in a more healthier direction with product lines, but still.
Yeah. Well, no, of course we did get some people that were unhappy when we announced the deal. What was my view on Coke before the deal? I didn't have a strong view, to be perfectly honest. I have to say, I drink Diet Cokes all the time, so I was definitely a consumer of the business. I know it's the world's most sort of enduringly popular consumer brand. I don't think it was on the hate list of some. I think there's some multinationals that got much sort of are definitely more on people's sort of don't buy from list. I know that they've had some issues. I know there's some things that they've been accused of. I actually don't know the business particularly well. We did a lot of due diligence before we got into bed with them, and what did we find? We found that, firstly, the people that we met and had the relationship were incredibly ordinary, decent folk that we really liked and trusted and respected. And that, for us, because we're a very human business, we couldn't do business with people that we didn't actually like on a personal level. When we dug in deeper into the business, we were surprised by all the good things that we found out about them, things that they don't actually talk about. Because if you're Coke and you talk about these things, like they give $100 million away to charity each year, that they have the largest employee HIV program in the world, that they distribute 10 million mosquito nets in Africa by taking out one bottle of Coke from every crate of 24 and putting in a mosquito net in the spare box. And they have this huge program with Greenpeace about turning their fridges off at night. There's all these little great things about them, but they don't tend to talk about them because then just get into trouble. So we were actually, the more we found, the more we've come to like them, and they've been great guys to do business with. It's a relationship. They're kind of like it's like having an older brother. They're in a different school playground, right? So we're still in our own school playground. We still got to have the fights. There are fights, and we've got to have them. However, there's just almost like some background confidence you get from knowing that you've got an older brother that could just come and